Mastery videos. A lot of people said most mastery videos a bit out of date. Been a while, and although there hasn't been a lot of changes, pretty much very few to no changes in masteries over the years, the champs have changed, the notes have changed, the gameplay, the meta has changed. So it doesn't hurt to go back, take a little look at masteries. I was getting ready to redo my masteries anyways, therefore figured, hey, may as well and explain them a little bit. First thing before you start redoing your masteries is know what your main agenda is. Are you looking at for a specific content? Because it costs units to change them around, okay? Or what you're investing in along the way. So know what your main agenda is. If you are like a big time grinder and doing arena, might want to entertain suicide / recoil masteries, which I'll show a little bit towards the end, or at least explain it a little bit. And or other ones you might want to mix things up. It also depends on your champs you use, because certain things are benefits. What I am going to start off though with is starting off with the very basics. I'm going to show you what I consider a basic, pretty much highly recommended beginning outline, and then we're going to go from there. So I'm going to start ranking stuff up as we go. Strength. Only one point in this. You have to open it up in order to go to the next one. Again, greater strength is not enough stats on there for, in my opinion, to make that big of a difference, so I only put 1 point there. Next up, we see courage. Here we will see champions passively increase attack by 10% while they're below. I'm finding below half health sometimes, so that extra 10% is good. In fact, personally, I like to give myself all 3 points in here, because that is going to knock me up quite a bit. So that puts me 20%. So I get an extra 20% attack with that, with 3 points in, when I'm under 50% health. Do a little extra damage there. Pierce. Critical hits from your champions ignore an additional 5% of armor resistance. Personally speaking, I'm going to go ahead and start with 1 point there and work my way up. Lesser precision. In order to get to the greater, I have to put a 1 point here. So I got my 1 point. On precision, increase the critical rating. This one I consider pretty important. Therefore, personally, I like to go ahead and put in 5 points. And again, this is what I'm considering a basic setup. Could yours change slightly here and there? On the basic template foundation that I'm showing right now, there is a reason why I recommend this to start off with and then move from there. Lesser cruelty, start off with just the 1 point is all I'm looking at. And I am looking at maxing out the whole 5 points on cruelty, because critical damage, critical rating is a big part of getting good damage, great damage on a lot of these champs. So I want to be maxed out, and I recommend you do the same. So that's starting us off on the basic parts over here on the offense. We will notice that some of this stuff is, I got enough points in there. I got 18 points in here, so some of the stuff that was originally grayed out is not. We could put in some points in pure skill, which I'm not going to do at this point. I'm not going to put anything else in offense for now, because I want to put in my basic template for defense and proficiencies before I start putting in more points. If I was going to do Suicide's Recoil Masteries, I would have to put a point in Glass Cannon. I would have to, I only recommend one. I would have to put a point in recoil, which punishes you for doing special, so I recommend no more than 1 point myself. And then you would want to max out liquid courage, which can give you up to 30% more health, but it also gives you poison damage. And you would want to max out double edge, which again give you another 30% attack. I mean, the other one's 30% attack, so 60% attack between the two, but this one gives you bleed damage. So liquid courage and double edge. But in order to get the points along the line there, means you have to sacrifice a little bit. Some of the other things I'm not considering as part of my basics for now would include Extended Fury. I usually don't put points in there, nor do I put in Enhanced Fury. Sometimes I might put stuff in Pure Skill. Usually don't put stuff in the mutant one too often. I do plan on coming back and putting stuff in these ones down over here, the Despair and Deep Wounds and Assassin area. However, I want to wait and see how many points I have left over after I prioritize. You may or may not put stuff in there depending on how much resources you have, where you're at in the game, and what champs you use. Not everyone's going to want to put champs in that bottom right corner on offense. Some will, some won't. Let me move on to defense. Again, we're going to start with the basics. Got to do a vitality, get the grid going. We're now going to move over to greater vitality. Again, I only put 1 point in each of these just to get to the other ones. And now, this is where things can get going. Personally speaking, I like getting a little bit of health going on back, whether I am or whether I'm not running Suicide's or Recoil Masteries, which most of the time I am. So kind of forced by habit, I always put in at least 1 point in salve, and I always max out recovery. That's just kind of an automatic I do based on different champs. I like getting a little health kicking back in here and there. So this gives me percentages based on passive regeneration, so an extra 15% increased based on maxing that out. And I recommend that for a lot of you. If you don't ever use regeneration champs, and or if you don't do recoil suicides masteries, then you might not need that, but it could be helpful. Now I'm looking over here on defense, and I have to make a decision because right now I have 6 points total in here. If I want to unlock, let's say, willpower, for example, I have to have at least 15 points in defense first. And then I have to unlock willpower, that to open up coagulate, which could be very helpful, by the way, in Suicide's Masteries. Same with suture as well. So this is something I'm looking at. I'm generally not somebody who puts in a whole lot into these. I will definitely have to put in enough points. If I was doing recoil suicide masteries, I would need willpower open. Absolutely, it's very helpful when you're running those masteries because you're losing health between recoil and the bleed and poison, so you definitely want willpower. Since I'm not going to be building that kind of format right now, I'm not going to expect myself to put in enough points in defense. I only put enough points in defense for those if I am running the recoil slash suicides masteries. I'm going to take a quick look to see if there's anything else. I want to have block proficiency only if I have leftovers. Perfect block, I rarely put anything in there. And stand your ground. Some people do. You want to throw somebody off in battleground. Sometimes you see people throw some points in there, can kind of throw you off in BG. Other than that, personally, I usually don't put points in there. And then we'll see some of these, the collar tech, I rarely put anything in there, as well as the science ones. So, and then we'll see these coming soon ones that have been coming soon for 7 years now. Kabam has a very unusual use of coming soon. Just take out coming soon already. Anyway, let's go on proficiency. So I started with 18 points in my offense, as we see here, that I consider the basic automatic. Pretty much no matter what I'm doing, I'm putting those in there. 6, pretty much no matter what I'm doing, I put those in there. And then the proficiencies. Let's get started on these. Parry. Got to start off with 1 point. I will put more points in this sometimes because it does increase some of the items you do get out of that. So I only do that if I have extra points. So I'm going to start with just 1 point for now. Limber. Sometimes I might put more points in there. It's going to depend on where I'm at. It can also be really good for battlegrounds because it reduces how long you're stunned for, so it makes it harder on those going after you. Since I do plan on probably using this mastery setup for a new battleground setup, I probably will go back and put more points in there. Dexterity, you absolutely need at least 1 point in dexterity. You usually don't need more than that, but you're welcome to do if you would like. What I like over here now, Stupefy, when the opponent is inflicted with a stun, there's a lot of champs that rely on kind of parry heavy, those type of items. I like long stuns. So I like to max this out. Unless you never use parry heavy champs, then you don't need it. I highly recommend this, especially for battlegrounds. Because if you're not using max points in Stupefy, and if your opponent is using max limber, well, guess what? You're going to be having a little bit of pain. So I do recommend at a minimum 3 points here in Stupefy. I'm now looking at Petrify, which I do plan on coming back and putting points in, but I'm still doing my base foundation and work from there. I'm going to start prioritizing things soon. And then we have also Pacify. I also like to put points in here, but again, I'm going to start prioritizing. As I still have 29 points remaining. Keep in mind, level 60, I got max mastery points. You might have less points, so you might have to do more prioritizing than me. I don't recommend these XP ones. If you're brand new and just trying to level up really quick, then maybe you can. Honestly, not really worth it. Here's the gold ones. It's such little gold, and gold's become much easier in the game to get. There's very little use for that. Here is one that we're probably going to want. Mystic Dispersion. This is very good if you use Mystic Champs. This could also be very good for battlegrounds and a lot of things. I like Mystic Champs. I have a lot of very good ones. So I do plan on putting points in Mystic Dispersion. The problem with this is, as we see down there in the red, 11 points in proficiencies. I don't have enough points in proficiencies right now. I only have 6. So before I can use this, the requirement is 11. So I have to spend 5 more points before I can open up Mystic Dispersion. Me personally, I want to do it. However, I'm going to come back to that in a moment because I wanted to show you my basic outline of what I recommend. So this is what I basically recommend at a minimum. I'm at about 30 points that I've used, and this is a good starter template, and then you build from here. So again, we will see the 18 points I saw on offense. I recommend pretty much any build you're going to do. That's a good start. This is a good start on defense. And proficiencies, this is a good start. So go from here. From here, start prioritizing what are you trying to do in the content, where you're trying to go. You're trying to do a suicide's recoil mastery I explained a few moments ago, or are you looking for else? I'm looking for something different. So I do know I want Mystic Dispersion. So now this is where it starts going by preference. I know I want Mystic Dispersion. If you have invested in it, I recommend using it too. So I need to spend some more points in order to open this up. I do know where I want to use points. I do know I do like Petrify. So when the opponent is inflicted with a stun, they also reduce regeneration and power gain. So I am a fan of this. I'm going to put in, let's go ahead and put in 2 points for now. And we have Pacify. When the opponent is inflicted with the stun debuff, they also reduce enemy ability accuracy. The duration of the stun ability accuracy gives them ability to activate. So I like Pacify. So I'm going to put in at least 1 point for now. And you know what? Let's go ahead and put in a 2nd point for on the stuns. Again, I like some of the parry heavy type of champs. I still don't have enough for Mystic Dispersion. I am close though. I'm going to go ahead and for now put in another point on Limber. Normally I don't use this for all gameplay, but since I plan on using the setup again for Battlegrounds, that can kind of throw people off if they don't have as much time for the stun. So rigorous physical training reduce the duration of enemy stuns. So I'm going to go ahead and put in at least a 2nd point in here for now. And by doing that, I have now unlocked, we see all these other things that have unlocked, including Cosmic, which I've never even unlocked level 1, rank 1, but Mystic Dispersion. So I am going to go ahead and put in at a minimum, we'll see it goes up from 2%, next one is going to be 3%. I know I want a minimum of 3. I might put in more later. I might go up to 4, but we'll see. This is Mystic Champions gain 5% power gain, but that's with rank 3. Each time a buff is nullified or its duration expires off the opponent. So, you know, when those mystics shoot up in power really quick, Mystic Dispersion is why. You want to mess with your opponents on Battlegrounds. If you do war or anything like that, Mystic Dispersion is a great way to do it. It's a great way to get to your specials quick. So I'm starting with 3 points now. And I now have 14 points in my proficiencies. I have 21 points total left. Keeping in mind I have maximum total mastery points available. I am pretty happy with how proficiencies look now. Depending on what I have left over after I go to offense, then I might come back here and add some more in a few other areas. But again, I'm prioritizing right now. Before I go to offense, I'll go back to defense. I honestly don't plan on putting anything more on defense unless I really feel the need. I could put some in energy resistance, sure. I could put some in physical resistance, sure. I could put some in block proficiency as well. I might choose to later if I have extra from after what I really want to do. I'm happy with the beginning part over here. I do not plan on doing Suicide's Recoil, so I won't be doing these glass cannon or any of those. I won't be touching those. What I do want to do, especially in my area of the game, endgame content, big health pools, I need some points down here on some of these bottom right ones. Debuff supply to enemies, reduce their healing and regeneration. This could be a good, help you control fights a little bit of regeneration in many areas of the game. For now, I'm going to put at least 1 point in there. I'll probably put some more later. I've never bothered to unlock Unfazed. I just haven't felt like it was worth it personally. You're welcome to disagree. I just haven't personally chosen to invest in that, so I don't plan on doing that today. What I will do is Deep Wounds. I do use some bleed champs. DOT could be very good in many different areas of the game. So bleed debuffs your champions inflict last a half a second longer. If they have more current health than the opponent, bleed debuffs inflict instant bleed, dealing 0.02. So if you use bleed champs, which there's a lot of good ones in the game, you like your Nick Fury or your Mole Man or many of those, a lot of skill ones specifically, and some other ones too. Some here. I use a decent amount, so I'm going to start off with at least 2 points in bleed is what I'm going to do, as I still have 18 points left. Again, I'm prioritizing what I want, then I'm going to figure out the rest. Assassin. And so this is a big one. If you're towards later game, you get a higher health pools, you need points in Assassin because enemies below 18%, your champion has a 20% attack and decrease enemy defensive accuracy by 12%. Sometimes you see a defensive ability on the defender might not trigger. It's probably because of Assassin if the attacker is using Assassin. Enemies start the fight below 18%, your champions also gain 30% of offensive accuracy. This one is huge. For a lot, especially in-game content. It can also be very good in battlegrounds. Me personally, right now, I know that I want to get this big boost as I can for this, for what I'm looking at, where I'm at in the game, battlegrounds, that. So I am maxing out my assassin. I got 5 points. So we look at the assassin, we will see I got that 60% and 20% right now. So that is going to be a big thing. That took a good amount of points. So I'm down to only 13 points remaining. 13 points. I don't believe I'm going to put any more on defense. I'm very stingy on using these on defense unless I'm doing the Suicide's Recoil Mastery and have to. So what I am going to look at now is I'm going to go back to my proficiencies. I have some points, so I'm going to make this a little bit harder on some of my opponents, the BG, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to max out Limber since I have points left over and remaining. So this means when they find me in battlegrounds, my champs are going to recover very quickly. It reduces enemy stun debuffs by 48%. They're going to be quick. If they're going to try to do parry heavy on me, they're going to have to be super quick. I'm also going to go and max out Petrify, which gives me 30% on the decreased regeneration and power gain when they're stunned. And I'm going to go and max out Pacify as well. So now I am very happy with these. I decide I'm going to go ahead and do an extra point in Mystic Dispersion as well, which will be maxed out for me. I do not have the 5th point unlocked. Don't feel a need for it. So we're looking at where I'm considering final for my proficiencies. Again, barely touch defense, but I don't care about defense on this personally. And so I have 7 points left for offense. So now I'm going to decide where I want to use these 7 points. And this is where it can get very tricky. Again, I prioritize what I want. I am going to throw in an extra point in Deep Wounds. A little bleed. I use enough bleed to make that worthwhile. I don't use it so much to where I want to have that much. Despair can be very helpful, especially on regeneration and battlegrounds. I'm probably going to go ahead and max this out to 3 because I feel like this could be the most helpful in content I'm looking at in games, so I still have 4 points remaining. So now I'm thinking about which ones I want to use it on. I'm going to go ahead and look at Pierce Skill. Skill champs ignore 4% of enemy armor, but there's also ignoring armor over here on critical hits. I'm going to go ahead and add a couple extra in Pierce since I have the points remaining. I put that as a lower priority, but since I do have some points extra, I'm going to use them there. I still have 2 points left. Trying to figure out where I want them. I am looking specifically probably at Deep Wounds. I'm also looking at possibly Pierce Skill. But again, do I want to use any block proficiency? I could. Do I want to use an energy resistance? I could, but I don't think I'm going to. So I am going to look at proficiencies again, see if I want anything else. I could add more on parry if I wanted to. Will time block when attack reduces by an additional 15%. And then the stun duration. And kind of thinking if I want to use this or not. But I'm probably not. I don't plan on using dexterity. I got all these maxed out. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is use one more on my Deep Wounds. That's going to help my bleeders, DOT, a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and do I'm going to add the last one. I'm leaning towards Deep Wounds because as we see here, it will bring it up to 2%. And you know what? Let's go ahead and do that. So, as I said, I recommend prioritizing and have a plan before you start and go from there. We will see my layout I am going to be using right now. See, I go very heavy in offense, 33 of my points in offense. I barely touched defense. Defense is kind of an afterthought. Honestly, I could put in 0 in here and still be satisfied. But I did put in a 6 just to put in 6. And then we got our proficiencies, and I went heavy on those 20. So my priorities, as we see how I play, where I'm at, what I'm looking at, my priorities are clearly on offense. Secondly, proficiencies, and defense is an afterthought. So hopefully this helps you. Keep in mind, hopefully explain a few things and what could be good for you, but keep in mind, there is no one size fits all. It depends on how you play your champs, the content you want. Keep that in mind while you're prioritizing, and I hope this helped. Don't forget to subscribe to MCOC Al Bundy Rules.